Welcome back to the Just Thoughts podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Cole Graham. With me, as always, my co-host, Gabe Baltiera.
What's up, guys?
We hope you guys had a very happy new year. It is the year 2025 now, the year of Cole Graham.
I can't believe it. I felt like forever ago that we were saying, like, oh, 2025, that's so far away. Nah, man, we're here. We're in it. That's crazy. Right. I can't believe it. I feel old. I got to tell you right now.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. But a good thing about today's episode is we understand that with New Year's parties, normally you guys are with family or friends. So the real reason why we wanted to talk about today's topic, which you guys don't know yet unless you've read the title, is who your family is. Because we don't think it's just the people that you're blood related to. We think it's the people that you care deeply about and that care deeply about you. You guys support each other. You guys show up for each other. And I have a lot of family members that I'm not related to, but I consider them family no matter what. And I think that it's a great thing to talk about this because I'm sure other people, including you, have a very similar understanding of the definition of family as well.
Yeah. And actually, I want to kick off this episode with a little bit of a story, if you don't mind if I do.
Of course.
Yeah. So as I think I've talked about him before, my mom's boyfriend, on this podcast. It was just for a quick snippet. It wasn't for a long time. But he is not blood related at all. He has his own family. He has 2 kids of his own. And when he came into our lives, my mom started dating him almost 10 years ago. I never thought that I would see him as a family member. I would always see him as mom's boyfriend. And I can say with 100% certainty that I see him like a second dad nowadays. Because yes, he's not blood related. There's no genetic DNA, anything like that we're, if you took a test, you'd be like, it would be so far different. You know what I'm saying? But it's the things that he does for our family, for my mom, for just people in general, that I'm like, you're part of the family. This is, you're not just some stranger. You're not just some boyfriend or, whatever. Like I see you as a father figure. And, this just kind of popped in my head was this past fall, there was a family emergency and he is a doctor. He works as an orthopedic surgeon, so he has a lot of connections within the hospitals in Connecticut. And he was like, just on top of everything. It was for my sister. She needed some help. And it was like, boom, like that. Like usually when you go to the hospital, I mean, like you're waiting in the ER.
Oh, they take their time.
It's like you got a 4-hour wait. You're just sitting with everybody and their mother who's like coughing and hacking. There's blood, whatever. I mean, my mom and sister got to the hospital and they were already into a room. And then by the time like it had been an hour, they were already in, getting results for a test and whatever it was. And she was fine the next 2 hours. So, and there's many different examples why I see him as a father figure, but that was the biggest one because my sister is not his kid. I mean, my sister is solely and 100% both my parents. She's known him for about 8 years, something like that, 9 years. But he treated her like his daughter. Like he got up in the middle of the night. I think it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. She was super sick. He drove them. He took the car. He took my mom and sister, made the phone calls as they were driving. Don't text and drive. It was Bluetooth. So,
hey Siri.
Yeah. It was, they called the hospital and like, it was like, hey, it's, Dante, I need some help. Can you help, can you move things around? And I was like, not that friends won't do that, but it's another level when it's family. Do you know what I'm saying? Kind of in a way, like there's
100%.
It's like people will be like, oh yeah, I can drive you to the hospital, or I can wait for you in the recovery room, or I can wait for you in the waiting room. But this was like, oh no, he was like calling people while they were on their way. He got up in the middle of the night, even though he had work and surgery early the next day. He made sure everyone was okay before he left, and they came back to help with getting them out of the hospital, whatever. But it was like those extra things were like, he's not blood related at all, again, but I see him as family. And I think you can say the same thing with, probably you have some stories as well.
Yeah, I do, because I have a family reunion every year, and I'm lucky enough to have that tradition every year, as we've talked about traditions before, where every year my family gets together, and I recently had the epiphany that I'm not related to everyone that's there, which seems kind of crazy because I'm 21. I've been going for 21 years now, and I'm just now realizing that I'm not blood related to nearly half the people that are there. I'm related to my grandpa and one set of cousins that show up. Everyone else that shows up is on my grandma's side. And the thing with my grandma is I'm not related to her at all other than by marriage. But no matter what, she is my grandma. And I full on believe that in my heart. I believe that in my mind. And she treats me like her grandson because I am. I treat her like my grandma because she is. I may not be blood related to her. She may not be my grandma by definition or whatever it may be. But in my definition, she is. And everyone else that shows up to that family reunion, I consider them family as well. And I'm not related to them because they are on my grandma's side that I'm not related to by blood. If that kind of makes sense. I know that was kind of like a whole back and forth trying to get their thing, but everyone that shows up, they treat me like family. I treat them like family, and they are. And even if the definition says they're not, even if our blood tests say we're not, we are a family.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool to see how we can bring people into our lives that have, again, no genetic correlation to us, but they mean so much to us, like in our heart and our soul and our mind, that we see them as more than just, oh, this is just a friend. Another person that comes to mind is she's basically like a second mom to us. You know, she's like the person that we go to in case of, like, if anything goes wrong, like when our parents aren't around, we're the person that she goes to. And I give thanks to my mom for this one, because when we first moved to Connecticut, to Westport, it was my sister. She was in preschool and she made friends with, you know, some kid, and that's how my mom and her met. And they became super, super close. Like we would see her, you know, come over all the time. We would have dinner. We would go like on trips together. We would be, you know, out on the boat together, all these, you know, different events. And over time, she became, you know, one super close to my mom, like my mom's best friend by far. And then she became like a second mom to us because she was there at Thanksgiving. She was there on Christmas. You know, we would have her over for Christmas dinner. We would have her over for Thanksgiving dinner. Like, she was part of the traditions. And, you know, whenever something goes wrong, whether it's like mom isn't there and we need someone to help us with something, we would call her. And it's kind of cool because, like, again, just like your grandma, just like my mom's boyfriend, like, she is not blood related at all. But when we see her, we see family. Like, we're like, oh, we don't just see some person who's a friend. Like, we see someone who is like near and dear to our hearts, and we treat them, or we treat her, you know, like a mom. Like, we give her life updates. You know, we're like, hey, this is how life's been in California. We give her like school updates, whatever it is. And it's cool because it's like, it's not someone that is genetically in our family, but it kind of feels like they are. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there's never going to be a time where I'm not going to think of her as my grandma, or everyone else that shows up to the family reunion. I'm not going to think for a second they're not family. Even when I had the realization way too late in life that they're not necessarily my side of the family, I still didn't change my mind about how I felt about them. I still never once said, oh, well, they're not really my family. I just was like, oh, I'm not blood related to them. Okay, that's fine. They're still my family though. And like you said, like, there's people in your life that maybe you haven't considered family that become family. Like, I have friends that I consider part of my family, or consider family enough to where, like, if I need something, I know I can count on them. And yes, you may call that a friend. I call that family.
Yeah.
Because they care about me so much. I care about them so much. And normal friends are supposed to do that. But in order for that to be family, they do it without fail. They do it without asking for anything in return. They do it just because they love you. And you do it for them just because you love them. And that's what a family is to me.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I can see where people will think like, oh, that's just like the obligations of a friend. Like, hey, you know, like, we go hang out, we go to dinner or whatever, exchange gifts on birthdays and holidays. But I think that's, you know, when you've known someone for a long enough time and they've been through, you know, what you've been through, like, say you've been through some like crazy stuff together, like, that's family. Like, that, I don't think that's just a friend. Like, I think that's someone that is like, you have a bond with, that someone you're like, hey, if all goes south, you know, like, hey, I'm going to be by your side no matter what. Like, I got you. And vice versa. Like, you know, if something went wrong for them, like, you'd be able to help them out and be like, hey, I got you. Don't worry. Like, you know, I mean, this is a very drastic example, But like, say like you had to go to the hospital, right? Like you just weren't feeling well. You just like, maybe you have a fever or whatever. You're like, hey man, I got to go to the hospital. And they take you to the hospital like without a second thought, right? They're like, hey, I got you. I'm coming over right now. But it's, again, they're not blood related. It's just someone, who you met at school or playing baseball or soccer or whatever it is. Like, it's just someone that came into your life but became family,
Yeah, because all this by marriage stuff too, like everyone says, oh, that's my brother-in-law. Oh, that's my son-in-law. Oh, that's my stepson. That's my whatever. Like, you can call them whatever you want and then add son after it or daughter after it. But whatever that first word is, I'm dropping that for most people. Like, if you and Jenna ever get married, I'm not going to call you my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
I would call you, that's my brother, Gabe.
Yeah.
And most people might think, oh, well, that's kind of weird. Like, why? Because we have that relationship where even now, like, I consider you my brother.
Yeah.
Like, I don't consider you like, oh, he's just a friend. Oh, he just dates my sister. Like, when you first started, obviously, yeah, because like, that's who you were to me.
Yeah.
But since we've had a good relationship, we do the podcast, as you guys obviously can tell because you're listening to it. And like, you're more than that now.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, if someone were to ask, oh, who is he? I would have to explain it to them because they're not just going to, oh, he's my brother. They're like, oh, wait, what? Brother?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean, though. Like, you've earned that role and you've earned that title. And it's something that I just don't give out. And nobody should just give out.
Oh, 100%. I think I think you hit it right on the nose. Like, it's earned. It's not like, hey, we meet and we go at lunch and like, hey, you're my brother. It's like, no, it's like, it takes years, maybe a little bit longer, depends on who the person is, but you have to show your dedication and why you'd be more than just a friend. Because I think some people are like, oh yeah, I'll be your friend, but then they don't talk to you for, 6 months and they come back in your life and you're like, hey, how's it going? It's like, no, someone that that you really truly see as a family member is someone that is not there every day, but most of the days you're texting or most of the days you're hanging out, or at least you're going to see them at least once a week. I think that's, because I consider you a brother as well. It's like, obviously for the viewers and the listeners, like how this started was, I started dating Kole's sister, Jenna. And obviously it started off as, I was the boyfriend. I wasn't like, we just kind of like were, connecting off of me being her boyfriend. But it ended up being like, I ended up going to school near Fullerton. Like I went to Chapman. Like we would hang out every day. We would go to Cane's. We would play video games. Like we would go to Disneyland with like our buddies. Like it just evolved over in time. Like it wasn't just like snap a finger and it was like that. It was like little things built on top of each other to really make it go from a friendship to family. And I think that's where sometimes people get confused. It's like, yes, it's a friend, but it's also like there's layers underneath and that kind of built up to it, if that makes kind of sense.
Of course. And there's even the opposite side of the spectrum where there's someone who is blood related to you, but that doesn't make them family. Because there's this saying that I've heard, it was either on TikTok or Instagram or some sort of social media page, where anyone can be a father, a mother, but not everyone can be a dad and a mom. And the reason why those are such different things is because anyone can just have a kid, but you don't earn that role as mom or dad unless you're there for them, you support them, you love them, as we've already said. And just because you are blood related to them, that doesn't mean you're family to them, because you can be a terrible person, you can be awful, you can neglect them, you cannot visit them on their birthdays or say happy birthday, send them a text, wish them a Merry Christmas, see them for 5 years, whatever, and you just completely ignore them. That's not what family does. And I think most people are able to see that not every family's perfect. Not every family tree is the same, because if you look outside, not every tree is the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with families, because not everyone has one mom, one dad, 2 grandpas, 2 grandmas, couple sets of cousins on each side. Like, there's people that have 4 dads, 3 dads, 1 mom, no dad, no grandpa, 1 grandpa. And you can look at that from the outside and think, well, how does that work? Isn't that like kind of dysfunctional? Isn't it kind of like weird that you call this person dad, but he's not your dad? Or you call this person grandma, but you don't really know them, or your family's not like, you can't judge a book by its cover, because every family works differently and every family has their imperfections, but that's what make each family unique. That's what gives your family reason to work on being a family because, like I said, not every family is perfect. I only have one grandpa. I have 3 grandmas. And I love that because my family is what I've always known. And I love the way my family works.
Also, speaking of your family, I remember the first time I met all 3 of your grandmas. And, me coming from a family, I had, grandma, grandpa, my mom's side, grandma, grandpa, dad's side. So I never had more than 2 grandmas and 2 grandpas. And I remember when Jenna was like, oh yeah, I have 3 grandmas. And I was like, wait a minute, you have 3 grandmas? And I was like, that's, not that it's weird, but I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, how does that dynamic work? Viewers, if you came to a grand function, you cannot tell who's blood related and who's not blood related because you guys treat everybody the same. Like, even though your grandma on one side is blood related and the other side isn't blood related, you guys treat them all the same. So like for me, I was like, I couldn't even tell. And I think that's awesome because when you can be like that for someone who isn't blood related to someone who is blood related the same way, that's amazing. That's, again, going back to my mom's boyfriend, like you would think that he is our dad, but he has no correlation to us except for he's dating our mom and he's been in our lives for 10 years. But if you were to see us, at the airport or going to dinner or, we were at a Ranger hockey game, you'd be like, oh, that's a cool little family. Like you would not suspect that they were dating and then that these are her kids and that it's like 2 separate families coming together. But then that, on the other hand, that's also really cool because then it shows that, like, as you were saying, like you don't need to be blood related to make someone family. And vice versa, as you're saying, like someone who is blood related may not mean family to you. I don't know if you have someone that that's blood related that you don't really know. For me, I can't really think of it at the top of my head, but sometimes there's far distance cousins who live in, for me, Spain, who I don't see at all, and I'm like, well, we're blood related, but I don't even see you all the time. So I guess you're sort of family, but you're not. Like I consider you more family than them, but you and I aren't even blood related. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have family members that live in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I've never been to Colorado. I don't know who these people are. I couldn't even tell you one of their names.
But I think it's very cool because I think, you always hear the term of, mixed family. I think it's a term. Correct me if I'm wrong, viewers, but
that sounds right to me.
It's like, like people that come together, and it's usually during marriage when it's like, the mom or the dad and the mom, they bring kids together and they have like a new sense of like a family dynamic. But I would never call someone a stepmom or a stepdad or a stepbrother or a stepsister. I would just say, like you were saying, I'd call them mom or dad, brother or sister, because adding that in-law or the step, not that it's bad per se, but I just think if they really mean that much to you, you don't need that other half of the word. Like you don't need the in-law, you don't need the step or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I said it earlier.
Yeah, because I think it's true. It's like that just means that they are family to you, even though they aren't blood related.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to leave it because, like we've said, no family's perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. And if you guys would like to show us some support, we are on YouTube at Just Thoughts Podcast. If you guys would like to go ahead and subscribe, turn on the little bell notifications. That way you guys know when our next episode is uploaded. If you guys would like to support us on Instagram and TikTok, that way you guys can see our little teaser posts that I work very hard on. You can follow us at Just Thoughts Pod. That's at Just Thoughts POD on Instagram and TikTok. And if you guys listen to on Apple Podcast or Spotify, you can also go ahead, follow us on there, turn on notifications on that as well, and then leave us a 5-star review if you like the show. And with that being said, guys, we will leave it there. See you guys in the next episode.
Later, guys.